So I was inspired to write this book for a couple of things. One was my son Roscoe has autism and developmental delay, and just seeing how much kindness is attracted to his life and his world. So it just feels like from that point of view, kindness has just been in my world in such a big way over the last 10 years or so. And the other one was I was doing this keynote in Rome, and I got asked this question at the end about what else, apart from everything I was talking about around productivity, has made my business successful. And I just instinctively said kindness. And it had this really big reaction in the room, and it just really struck me that we don't often think about kindness. It's almost like a polarized topic. It feels soft and fluffy in a way, but it's also, some people are really pro the idea of how can they bring more kindness to work, and some people actually think there's no place for kindness at work at all. So it feels like this polarizing idea that I really wanted to dig into and just figure out how could I bring something to that just really encourages people and helps people to step into kindness. But the most rewarding and challenging part, I'd say in terms of rewarding, the rewards at the end, right? So the process of writing a book, this one's probably taken me 3 or even 4 years. It's probably the longest research phase, drafting phase, editing phases that I've ever done for any book. And I think that's just because it's so different from everything else I've done. There's a lot more polarizing and sort of, quite controversial ideas in there, let's say. But the reward is at the end. So once the book is out and people start to receive it and I can share the ideas and do keynote talks around it, that's really the reward, is that, just noticing people's reaction to some of those ideas and some of those concepts that I've come up with within the book. That's definitely the rewarding part. I suppose the challenging part of the book was kindness is a topic that everybody instinctively knows something about. So trying to bring definitions to that, or say what it is or it isn't, is very subjective. So the book is also backed with quite a lot of science and research and different reports from psychology, reports from HR and business culture kind of studies, to just look at how does kindness work. And there are some really amazing statistics in the book just around how organizations that are more kind, that do focus on people and kindness much more, are ultimately just more successful. So I suppose that's also a really important message of the book, is that whilst this stuff feels fluffy, it's actually just really central. If you want to have performance and really drive profitability within your organization, if you want people to be healthier and happier and have better well-being at work, then kindness is not a fluffy topic. It's actually central to everything you're trying to do. Well, I hope once people read the book, they'll feel inspired to bang the drum for kindness in their organizations. One of the things I come across quite a lot when I'm doing talks around this stuff is there are often some real ambassadors for kindness within a business, and then there's also some people who are maybe the psychopaths or the baddies, or not necessarily valuing kindness in the same way. So I hope the book gives people some stats, some interesting ideas, some different ways of framing things that just help them to bang that drum for kindness and make it seem like the most obvious choice. I think there's this sense that there's no place for kindness at work, and work has to be serious and dog eat dog, and it's competitive, and so as a result there's no place for kindness. I just think that's a myth, and the more you actually dig into the science of it and look at the numbers of which organizations perform better, what you find is the kind organizations are the ones that thrive. So what does kindness mean to me? I'd say there's a couple of phrases that really stick in my head and I talk about in the book. So one is, kindness is truth and grace. So my friend Chris Kisley introduced me to this idea of truth and grace. So having that truth and being for someone and committed to their truth, committed to their development, but also delivering that truth with grace and with that level of care and empathy and understanding. So truth and grace, I think, is a really nice definition of kindness. And then the other one is to think of kindness as about limiting the damage, right? So either making someone's bad day a bit better, or just recognizing that some people, if they're having a bad period in their life, you can do something that's kind, that just makes the day or makes that moment, or just helps to make their life a bit more comfortable. So anything that you can do to limit the damage, I think, is also kind. So I think one thing I'd really love this book to do is just change some perceptions, because there are so many things that we see in the media, portrayals all through the years, from Ebenezer Scrooge to The Wolf of Wall Street. There's all these characterizations of being the business baddie is what makes you succeed. And actually, as we go through society, there's so many people acting with kindness, but it's so quiet and almost unremarkable and doesn't really get the headlines. And so I think if we can shine a light on that, start to open up a conversation that actually the behaviours that mean you succeed as an individual or as an organisation are the ones where you are kinder, the ones where you do act with more empathy, the ones where you do really think and care for other people. It's often seen as slightly unsexy or slightly fluffy, but actually that's the hard stuff. It's the stuff that's skillful, it's the stuff that's really driving performance and ultimately making workplaces better. So if we can start a conversation about that, start people really thinking about this idea of kindness at work being the choice and being the one that is the most preferable choice that we can make, then I think the book is starting to start the right conversations and do its job. So the book, it's got some personal stories in it. There's lots of my own experiences from my own career as a manager and a leader and a team member. We start with quite a lot of the research around just making the case for why kindness is the best choice, why kinder cultures succeed, loads of data that backs that up. I'll talk about the 3 myths of kindness, so really challenging some of the assumptions that we have around why the business bastard succeeds and kinder people don't, really challenging some of those assumptions. And then the second half of the book is the practical stuff. So there's 8 principles of kindfulness at work, each designed to just make you think. There's loads of practical exercises within that. And kindness is ultimately a practice, right? So the more you practice it, the more empathetic you get, the kinder you get. And it's a practice that we can get better at every day. So those 8 principles at the end are really about just giving people some of the tools, giving them the ideas, giving them some questions to reflect on, just to help to up their game in terms of how do we spread more kindness, how do we get more kindness, and how do we use that to drive performance and make organizations better places to be.